The bells of St. Peter's will toll again, the faithful will gather, and the world will stand still in anticipation of what comes next. But this time, the uncertainty is greater than ever. Rumors are swirling through the Vatican, whispers echoing in the grand halls where history is written and rewritten. Pope Francis, the man who reshaped the papacy, the figure who has divided as much as he has united, may be nearing the final chapter of his tenure, not by choice, but by inevitability. His health, once a quiet concern, has become an undeniable reality. Frailty has taken hold, and the question on everyone's mind is no longer if, but when. Will he step down, following in the footsteps of his predecessor, or will the Church once again prepare for a moment of mourning that will shake the foundations of Catholicism? If you want more hidden revelations like this, subscribe and turn on the bell. Don't miss anything. Before continuing, declare in the comments, "May faith and hope be renewed in our hearts." For more than a decade, Pope Francis has been a force of transformation. From the moment white smoke rose above the Sistine Chapel in 2013, signaling his election, it was clear that the Catholic Church was about to enter a new era. His vision was radical: mercy over dogma, dialogue over silence, change over tradition. He opened the Church's doors to discussions that had long been suppressed, addressed issues that had been carefully avoided, and embraced a world that was moving faster than the centuries-old institution he led. He challenged the rigid structures of the Vatican, the political webs woven deep within its corridors, and the powerful figures who preferred a church untouched by modernity. But now, time is catching up with him. At 87 years old, Francis is not just a leader, he is a symbol of a battle within the Catholic Church. His reforms have sparked admiration and resistance in equal measure. He has faced backlash from conservative factions who see his papacy as a deviation from sacred tradition. His willingness to discuss topics once deemed untouchable has made him a hero to some and a threat to others. But beyond the theological debates, beyond the power struggles, his body is sending signals that cannot be ignored. He moves with difficulty, often relying on a wheelchair. His voice, once strong and commanding, now wavers. His breath, once steady, is now labored. He has been hospitalized multiple times, undergone surgeries, battled infections, each time returning, but never quite the same. This is not the first time the Catholic Church has faced such a moment. For centuries, the idea of a pope stepping down was unthinkable. The position was for life, an unbreakable commitment until death. That was until 2013, when Pope Benedict XVI shattered centuries of tradition with a single decision. He resigned, citing declining health, and became the first pope to do so in more than 600 years. The Vatican assured the world that the decision was his alone, that there was no external pressure. But in the years that followed, speculation never faded. Was he forced out? Were there forces within the Church that saw his resignation as an opportunity? Now, a decade later, the same questions are being asked about Pope Francis. The prospect of another papal resignation raises deeper concerns. What happens when a pope is no longer seen as infallible? When his authority is questioned not by theological debate but by the realities of human frailty? The Catholic Church, an institution built on continuity and unshakable tradition, now faces an era where the papacy is no longer guaranteed until death. Francis himself has hinted at the possibility of stepping down, stating that if he ever felt incapable of leading, he would not hesitate to follow Benedict's example. But the Vatican is not just a religious entity. It is a political machine, one with factions, alliances, and power struggles that few outsiders truly understand. Should Pope Francis choose to resign, the implications will be profound. The College of Cardinals will gather once more in the Sistine Chapel, a conclave shrouded in secrecy and centuries-old rituals, to elect his successor. But the battle lines have already been drawn. Will the next pope continue Francis's mission of reform, or will the Church revert to a more conservative path? The decision will shape the future of Catholicism for decades to come. Among the potential successors, several names stand out. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, often referred to as Asia's Pope Francis, is seen as a continuation of Francis's progressive agenda. His humility, deep theological understanding, and dedication to social justice have made him a favored candidate among reformists. However, his rise would represent a historic shift, as the Catholic Church has never had an Asian pope. On the other hand, conservative factions may push for a return to traditional values, favoring candidates like Cardinal Peter Erdo of Hungary, who aligns more closely with doctrinal orthodoxy. The stakes are enormous. The Catholic Church is facing declining membership in the West, scandals that continue to shake its credibility, and a world increasingly divided by ideological conflicts. The next pope will not only have to navigate these challenges, but also decide whether to continue the path of modernization or restore the strict traditions of the past. As the world watches and waits, one thing is clear: the coming months could be among the most significant in modern church history. Whether through resignation or the natural course of time, Pope Francis's tenure is nearing its conclusion. What happens next will not only define the future of the Vatican, but also the faith of over 1 billion Catholics around the world. If you've made it this far, tell me in the comments what you think about this prophecy. I'll reply to the best comments. Francis has spoken openly about the possibility of stepping down. He has said that a pope should have the humility to recognize when he can no longer lead. He has even suggested that papal resignations should become normalized, ensuring that leadership does not become a burden too heavy to bear. But does this mean he is preparing to take that step, or is something more complex at play? Because unlike Benedict, Francis has never been one to back down. He has faced opposition at every turn, yet he has stood firm. If he chooses to resign, it will not be because of pressure from within the Vatican. It will be because he, and he alone, decides that the time has come. Yet there is another possibility, one far more sobering. What if Pope Francis is not preparing to resign at all? What if instead we are witnessing something far more inevitable? His health has been declining for years, with the Vatican insisting that there is nothing to worry about. They assure the public that his recent hospitalizations, surgeries, and moments of visible weakness are all manageable. But those who have been watching closely see the truth. His energy is waning. His public appearances are fewer. His role, once filled with vigor, now carries the weight of exhaustion. The reality that no one dares say aloud is beginning to take form. The final days of his papacy may not be his decision to make. When the inevitable happens, whether through resignation or fate, the Catholic Church will once again stand at a crossroads. A new pope will be chosen, a leader who will set the course for the Church in the years to come. The College of Cardinals will gather in secrecy, votes will be cast, and a successor will emerge. But the question that looms over this process is not just who will take the throne of St. Peter, it is what direction they will take the Church. Will the next pope continue Francis's vision, carrying forward his message of inclusivity, reform, and dialogue? Or will the pendulum swing back, restoring the Church to a more conservative path, undoing the changes that Francis fought so hard to implement? This decision will shape the future of Catholicism. The divide within the Church is real, and the stakes are higher than ever. The battle between progress and tradition, between reform and resistance, will play out behind closed doors. And when the new pope steps forward, when the white smoke once again signals the beginning of a new chapter, the world will watch with anticipation. Will it be the continuation of a vision, or the return to an old order? Some names have already surfaced as potential successors. Among them is Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a close ally of Francis and a strong advocate for social justice and inclusivity. Tagle, often seen as the embodiment of Francis's reforms, could continue the progressive trajectory that the current pontiff has set in motion. His election would signal a new era for the Catholic Church, one that embraces diversity and acknowledges the shifting demographics of the faith. However, he faces strong opposition from conservative factions that seek to restore traditional values and resist further modernization. Another leading candidate is Cardinal Peter Erdo of Hungary, a figure who represents a more traditionalist approach to Catholic leadership. Should he be elected, the Church may experience a return to stricter doctrinal adherence, possibly reversing some of the more progressive changes implemented under Francis. His leadership would likely emphasize a stronger stance on issues such as clerical celibacy, same-sex marriage, and the role of women in the Church. For many, this would be a welcome shift back to the Church's historical roots. For others, it would feel like a step backward. Beyond the ideological battle, the next pope will inherit a world facing unprecedented challenges. The decline of religious affiliation in the West, the rapid growth of Catholicism in Africa and Asia, and the increasing need for interfaith dialogue all present significant concerns. Whoever rises to the throne of St. Peter will need to address these issues while maintaining the Church's unity. The political landscape surrounding the Vatican is also more complex than ever. With global conflicts, social justice movements, and economic crises all intersecting with matters of faith. The ability to navigate these turbulent waters will define the legacy of the next pontiff. Moreover, the question of internal church governance remains critical. The Vatican has long been a place of secrecy, where power struggles unfold behind closed doors. Francis attempted to bring transparency and accountability, particularly in addressing the long-standing issue of clergy abuse. His successor will need to decide whether to continue these reforms or allow the Church to revert to its old ways. The handling of these sensitive matters will not only determine the credibility of the new pope, but also influence the trust of millions of Catholics worldwide. Then there is the matter of modernity. Francis opened the doors to discussions on climate change, economic inequality, and social justice. His encyclicals on these issues have been groundbreaking, aligning the Church with contemporary global concerns. Will the next pope continue this trend, or will these discussions fade into the background? The world is changing rapidly, and the Catholic Church must decide whether it will change with it or resist the tide of modernity. One thing is certain: the next conclave will be one of the most consequential in modern history. It will be a defining moment, not just for the Vatican, but for the billions of people who look to the Church for guidance. The decision made in those hallowed halls will ripple across the globe, shaping the spiritual, social, and political landscape for years to come. For now, the world waits. The Vatican remains silent, offering only reassurances that Francis continues to serve. But the truth is evident. Time is relentless. The moment is approaching, and soon history will be made once again. Now that you know this, I'll leave you with this video where we reveal another shocking secret. Click here before it's too late.